I was sipping my morning coffee when my phone buzzed, lighting up with a number I didn't recognize. Something about the timing, the stillness of the house, the quiet hum of the air conditioning, made me feel uneasy. I set my mug down, the porcelain clinking too loudly against the marble countertop. When I answered, a polite but distant male voice said my full name. "This is David McCarthy, representing your family regarding a legal matter." I froze. Even now, after everything, just hearing the word family made my stomach knot. He continued, calm and clinical. "Your parents and your sister, Emily, have filed a motion requesting a house swap. They're asking you to vacate your property and move into your sister's apartment. We'd like to discuss this amicably before proceeding to court." I laughed, a short, bitter sound that surprised even me. "Amicably," I repeated, staring out my kitchen window at the sunrise washing gold across my backyard. This was the house I'd built my life in. The house that smelled like fresh paint and lavender candles and independence. And now, they wanted to trade it like baseball cards? I hung up without agreeing to anything, my heart thudding against my ribcage. For a moment, I just stood there, one hand on the cool granite counter, the other still gripping my phone. It seemed my past had finally found a way to knock on my door, this time with a lawyer's letterhead. I was 22 the night everything changed. Emily's engagement dinner was in full swing, the living room glowing with warm lights and the clinking of wine glasses. I stood in the corner, wearing a pale blue dress my mother said made me look less serious, whatever that meant. It should have been a happy night, but my chest felt tight. My parents were praising Emily's fiancé, a future doctor, so responsible, and then came the inevitable comparisons. "You could learn from your sister," my father said, smiling as if it were a joke. "Maybe then you wouldn't still be working that little coffee shop job." Everyone laughed politely. My cheeks burned. I wasn't just working at that cafe, I was saving every dollar to apply for design school. But in this house, dreams that didn't look like Emily's were dismissed before they even started. When I tried to speak up, my mother cut me off. "Sweetheart, maybe it's time to think practically. You can't live off sketches and ideas forever." Something in me snapped. I excused myself, went upstairs, and grabbed the one thing that mattered most to me, my grandmother's leather sketchbook. She'd given it to me when I was 16, telling me, "If the world won't give you a space, draw your own." That night, I packed a duffel bag. When I walked out, my father stood by the door, his arms crossed. "If you leave like this, don't come running back when it doesn't work out," he said. I was shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my bag, but I kept going. Out on the curb, under the yellow streetlight, I took a deep breath and told myself this was the first step, even if it felt like free-falling. That was the night I stopped being their difficult daughter and started being my own person. Leaving home that night felt like stepping off a cliff, but somehow, I landed on my feet. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a neighborhood that smelled like fried food and bus exhaust, where the walls were thin and the radiator hissed like an angry cat. But it was mine. I would sit cross-legged on the floor with my grandmother's sketchbook and draw until dawn, surrounded by cheap takeout containers and half-burned candles. The cafe job kept me afloat, but barely. On good days, I'd squirrel away enough to buy a new set of pencils or pay for one class at the community college. On bad days, I ate instant ramen and convinced myself it tasted fine. Then came Miranda. She was a regular at the cafe, always in sleek suits, always tipping generously. One day, she noticed my sketches spread out on the counter during my break. "These are yours?" she asked, picking one up with perfectly manicured fingers. I nodded, embarrassed. "They're good. Have you ever thought about interior design?" That conversation changed my life. Miranda turned out to be a senior designer at a boutique firm downtown. She offered me an unpaid internship, and though I had no idea how I'd juggle it with my job, I said yes. The next 2 years were brutal. I worked mornings at the cafe, afternoons fetching samples and measuring spaces for Miranda, and nights sketching ideas until my fingers cramped. I cried in bathroom stalls more times than I could count. But Miranda believed in me. When I landed my first paid project, designing a cozy reading nook for a client's nursery, I nearly screamed with joy. The check wasn't huge, but I pinned a copy of it to my wall as proof that my dream wasn't impossible. From there, things snowballed. One job led to another, then another. I learned to negotiate, to sell my ideas, to trust my instincts. Eventually, I opened my own studio, quietly, without posting about it online. My social media stayed boring on purpose. A picture of a latte here, a sunset there. I replied politely when my family asked how I was doing, but kept the truth vague. I bought my first car, then my first condo, and finally, the house I live in now, a light-filled place with hardwood floors and big windows that catch the morning sun. It wasn't about showing off. It was about building a life where no one could tell me I didn't belong. 2 days after the lawyer's call, my doorbell rang. Through the frosted glass, I saw 3 silhouettes, my parents and Emily. I considered not answering, but something inside me, maybe curiosity, maybe that same fire that made me leave years ago, made me turn the knob. When they stepped into my foyer, their expressions faltered. The space was warm and bright, with high ceilings, cream walls, and a statement chandelier I had custom designed. Fresh lilies stood in a crystal vase on the console table. "This is your house?" Emily asked, her voice small. "Yes," I said, calm and even. My mother's eyes darted around, landing on the framed photos along the wall, snapshots of finished projects, me standing next to happy clients, glossy magazine features with my name in the byline. "You've done well," she said finally, as though the words tasted strange. I led them into the living room, where soft jazz played from a hidden speaker. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in golden light, catching the edge of the abstract painting above the fireplace, my first big art splurge. For a moment, no one spoke. I let them take it all in. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "We just came to talk about the house swap. Emily's apartment is too small for the baby." I held up a hand, silencing him. "You mean the apartment she got with your help, the one you begged me to help her furnish when she got married?" Emily flushed, her fingers twisting in the strap of her bag. "I'm not trading my house," I said, my voice steady. "I worked for this. Every inch of it. Every light fixture, every piece of furniture, every nail in the wall. I paid for it. And I'm not giving it up because you think Emily deserves it more." My father's jaw tightened. "We thought you'd be reasonable." I laughed softly. "Reasonable? You mean obedient." There it was, the silence, the weight of years pressing into the space between us. I stood and walked over to the bookshelf, pulling down my grandmother's leather sketchbook. Its edges were frayed, but it was still intact. I placed it gently on the coffee table. "This," I said, "is why I left. Because I wanted to build something of my own. And I did. Without your help. Without your approval. Without your belief in me." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. "I didn't know," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "You didn't want to know." My mother sank into the armchair, her shoulders slumping. My father just stared at the floor. For the first time in years, the power dynamic shifted. I wasn't the girl begging them to see me. I was the woman they had underestimated, and now they were sitting in my house, on my couch, waiting for my decision. I let the silence stretch, long enough for the truth to settle like dust in sunlight. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, almost gentle. "This house isn't going anywhere. And neither am I." I stayed standing while they sat, the leather sketchbook still between us on the coffee table like an unspoken witness. "You didn't just come here for a house swap," I said quietly. "You came here because you thought I'd still be that scared girl who left with a duffel bag. But she's gone." My father shifted uncomfortably. My mother pressed her lips together. "So here's what's going to happen," I continued, my tone calm but unyielding. "If you want my help, it won't be on your terms anymore. It'll be on mine." Emily's tearful eyes lifted to mine. "What do you mean?" I took a breath. "Emily, if you need support with the baby, I'll help you, but you're going to contribute. You'll get a job, even part-time, and start standing on your own. I won't watch you live off everyone else while blaming the world for being unfair." Emily nodded slowly, as if realizing this was less a punishment and more a challenge. "And you too," I said, turning to my parents, are going to stop pretending that the only successful daughter is the one who followed your script. I am not your disappointment anymore. You will respect me, my choices, my career, my home, or you will not be welcome here. My father opened his mouth to argue, then shut it again. I'm not asking for an apology, I added, softer now. I'm asking for change. If you can do that, I'll be in your lives. If you can't, then this visit will be the last. The silence that followed wasn't tense this time. It was thoughtful. My mother's voice cracked when she finally spoke. We didn't realize how much we hurt you. You didn't want to realize, I said gently. But it's not too late to start. Emily wiped her cheeks. I'll do it, she said, voice trembling. I'll get a job. I don't want my child to grow up thinking the world owes them something. Something inside me softened. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was fighting them. I felt like I was leading them. Good, I said, sitting down at last. Because I'm willing to help, but not if it means going back to the way things were. They all nodded, even my father, though reluctantly. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. And for once, I had set the terms. They didn't leave right away. Instead, we sat together for almost an hour, the four of us in a room that finally felt honest. My mother asked questions, real ones this time, about my business, my clients, my projects. Emily told me about her pregnancy cravings, laughing through tears as she confessed how scared she'd been about the future. Even my father softened, asking to see more of my work. It wasn't perfect. There were still years of silence and bitterness between us. But for the first time, they were looking at me, really looking, not as the rebellious daughter who left, but as the woman who built a life on her own terms. After they left, I stayed on the couch, the house quiet again except for the soft tick of the wall clock. My eyes landed on my grandmother's leather sketchbook still lying open on the table. I flipped through the pages. Rough pencil drawings of my first ideas, messy notes written during sleepless nights, little doodles from when I felt too exhausted to think straight. One page stopped me cold, a quote my grandmother had written years ago. Build a home that feels like you, not like what they expect of you. I smiled. This house wasn't just walls and windows. It was proof that I had done exactly what she told me to do. I walked to the window, pulling the curtains back. Outside, the sun was setting, washing the neighborhood in a soft pink glow. Somewhere down the street, a child's laughter carried through the air, warm and bright. For the first time in a long time, I felt light, not because I had won, but because I had finally been heard. I rested my hand on the window frame and whispered to myself, like a promise, like a vow. They can take their lawyer, their demands, and their expectations, but they will never take this from me.